Hi, I'm Emma Rose. I'm a senior at Northgate High School, and at my high school there is a graduation requirement for all students to complete a senior project. For this project, we develop a question, write a research paper answering the question, then we either do community service or an experimental project. My question was, how has vaccine distribution changed from polio to COVID-19? And then I plan to sew masks and donate them for my project. I wanted to do a project related to COVID-19 just because it was so relevant, and I also found the vaccine distribution to be really interesting to learn about. And at the time that I planned to do this project, nobody really knew how it worked, which some stuff has changed in the past few months, but I still had a lot of fun doing my project. And the polio aspect came about when I read The Plague Year by Lawrence Wright in The New Yorker, and he sort of compared the two diseases and how he lived through them. So then this video is sort of documenting my progress, because even though we are in distance learning, I still wanted proof that I did complete my project. So this sort of follows my journey through learning how to sew, because I had never sewn before with the sewing machine, until I donate them. And so this is it. I began my project by driving 6 hours to see my Nana. I had never used a sewing machine before this, so I had the sewing master teach me. She was a great teacher, and I was lucky enough to learn on her nice sewing machine. Armed with the knowledge of my ancestors, I went home. I will link the template and the tutorial that I used below, but if you want to recreate them yourself, here you go. Hopefully this helps. I went shopping at Joann's for fabric, pins, and elastic and spent $30. Then I spent 2 hours cutting the fabric while watching TV with my mom. Here's a tip: if you have a fabric where it needs to be cut in a specific direction, cut your fabric out in that direction. It sounds obvious, but sometimes you forget, and now all the text is sideways. As you can see, my research assistant Chidi did not want me to cut out the fabric, and she tried her best to distract me. Another tip: if you have a cat around, make sure to keep your pins tucked away so she doesn't try to eat them. I had some close calls. I ended up making enough fabric for 8 masks. Remember to cut out your fabric either right or wrong sides together, because you have 2 sides to your face. If you're only 2-dimensional, then you don't need to worry about this. Then I put all the fabric away and safe from Chidi. I didn't start sewing until the next week because the machine was in the repair shop. The machine is not as nice as my Nana's. I hadn't figured out the perfect camera angle yet, and the machine kept on shaking the phone, but this is the only time I made this mistake. It took me 1.5 hours to sew 1 mask because the machine broke while I was almost done with the mask, so I had to fix it. Who knew that I was actually a mechanic in disguise? When I tried to make another mask, the machine broke again, and I was unable to fix it, so I guess the mechanic ghost had stopped possessing me. At this point, it was more expensive paying for the repairs than it would be to buy a new machine. So, meet the new machine. She is with me for the rest of this. Then I spent the entire weekend sewing more masks on my new machine. I quickly realized that the template I was using was for people with very large faces. The only way I could get one of these to stay on my face was to wear a KN95 mask underneath. But even then, the mask was still too big. It fit my dad, so I assume it isn't too bad for the rest of the population, but these were huge. I finished sewing the 7 masks I had already cut out and began to cut some more. I did this in 2 hours while watching Star Wars. I cut out 4 more of the large ones and 8 small ones. I used the original template, except I cut along the dotted line, which is a 1/4 inch inward to the original. The next day, I did more sewing. Unfortunately, I quickly realized that these new masks were way too small. They were too long on the sides and too short around the mouth. I guess they could fit children, but now I had made 20 masks that didn't even fit me. They would only fit the smallest and the largest of faces. At this point, I had done 15.5 hours out of my required 20, so my goal was to create a better pattern by the time I had finished. Here are all 20 of my masks. As you can see, I had yet to add the elastics. The next day, I spent 1.5 hours sewing the elastics. I actually ran out of elastics and pipe cleaners at some point. As you can see, Chidi plays an active role in all of my work, and today she decided that she wanted to stick her paw in a moving sewing machine. She's so cute she can get away with this. I drew out my new design. I took off 1 inch from the side so that it would be shorter, and I changed the bottom arc so that 1 inch would be taken off, but the front curve would still be the same length. I wanted enough room for me to yawn and still have the mask covering my nose and mouth. In this lighting, my hair actually matches Chidi's, which I think is pretty funny. I started cutting out more fabric, but with the new template. I bought more fabric, elastic, pipe cleaners, and thread at Joann's for about $40. I didn't need more fabric, but sometimes it's better if things are pretty. I spent 2 hours cutting out 11 masks while watching stuff on the TV. Here are the 11 cutouts and the new fabric. I also got a package from my Nana with the masks that she made. I guess that she liked my project and wanted to help out. Then I sewed 8 masks in the new size. Fun fact, if you ever see me off the screen in these sewing clips, it's because I'm ironing off camera. Nana taught me to iron the stitches after sewing so that they're locked in and the fabric is less stiff. I also used the iron before stitching because some of the pieces had to be folded, so I would iron them down. In the tutorial they would just press it, but I preferred to iron the fabric. My mom also used some of my pre-cut masks, so I only had 8 left. I played around with the thread on these ones, so I would put a white thread on the bottom and the color of the fabric on top, so that way it would be less noticeable. And here are my final 8 masks. I had done 23 hours of project work at this point. Here are all of the masks, 12 large, 8 medium, 8 small, and 9 large ones that weren't made by me. So I went on the Deaconess website where they have organizations list if they need masks. I sent mine to Joshua Christian Church. So I packed up my masks, I added a small note, and it was ready to be sent off. So that was the end of my project.